This is a first episode or first webinar in a series of webinars of this year's Circular Economy Balkan Beacons project. We're going to discuss this year about three topics, about systemic solutions, about the role of the cities and collaboration between cities and industry to reach circularity in the Balkan region, but also we're going to talk about the metrics and indicators and what is important to measure and why in order to reach a greater state of circular economy. Today with me, I have a wonderful opportunity to welcome two amazing speakers from Bulgaria and Greece. And these are Dr. Ebun Akinsete, PhD in urban, PhD basically in urban regeneration and sustainable communities, and also Ellie Shtereva, Master in International and European Governance. And very shortly, we're gonna discuss about several topics on systemic solutions for circular economy. And I welcome everyone to join in the questions and answer panel, to ask questions, to be active, and to join all the activities that we can share in this hour. Without further ado, I would then maybe present also my name and myself. My name is Milan Veselinov, and I welcome you in front of CirEkon, the company that is based in Serbia and that is a lead on this very complicated, if not complex, project that has been running for 3 years now. I've been graduating in Master's in Industrial Ecology, and since then I'm very interested in how to transform the Balkan system to fit the circularity, and not only because of the circularity, but because of the international need for changing the business system itself. We are dedicated to business transformation, but you will see very soon that it is not an isolated case, and we cannot only tackle one part of the system and hope for the rest to fit in. We need to be aware of all the parts of the system, or at least to the best of our capabilities, to be aware to as much as we can of the parts of the system to fit the circular economy narrative into the development. So how this webinar will work is I'm gonna present very shortly a little bit about the project, so you're familiar with how we can collaborate, why this is actually happening, and then we're gonna start with questions and answer based on a panel-based discussion. So we really want to have a lively discussion instead of having half an hour of presentations. Hopefully this also will be thriving in questions and also in answers. Yeah, it's more on you than on us. About the project itself. So we're here really to help our businesses take advantage of the new market standards they're facing. So we're not talking about circular economy only because of circular economy. We're talking about the future and how to modernize our markets and also collaboration between these. But what we've seen is that through guiding the businesses through the process of transition to the circular business model, we will enable them to become prepared for the new market obstacles they encounter. And these are basically mission and vision for the Circular Economy Balkan Beacons. To be very precise, if I say the regional aspect, that means that we are present in 6 countries in the region, but also very tightly collaborating with Germany, Denmark, and Spain into translating something that is cutting-edge knowledge or state-of-art knowledge and methods and methodologies, and trying to modify them in order to fit the Balkan region. So currently we connect very actively partners from Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And as I said, we connect them with partners from Wuppertal Institute in Germany, from Danish Technical University, Denmark, and also from Sustain, a company that is really dedicated to sustainability, to transition to sustainable development, which is based in Spain. We will talk about the systems transition. This is how we see it. We need to have some form of consensus about the knowledge of circular economy. We cannot translate circular economy in every given situation, in any given context. So our first mission is to perform the wide scope of information and knowledge about circular economy. Then what we need to do is to create a network in order for this to facilitate spreading the knowledge, information, and experience. And that's what circular economy beacons are really for, like creating the network of expertise, of problems and solutions and solvers in order to catalyze or to speed up the transition or transformation to circularity. At the end, it all makes sense only if we see the market impulses, if it's not only subsidy-based or it's not only fund-based, but if we see the market buy-in and if we see that the markets are ready to accept and know what are the real benefits for their business and for their basically development, if not business, then national development. And in the end, what we it's kind of the widest circle, but I would say that our biggest achievement would be to start the circularity from the innovation, basically from the bottom up. It is a long way to do, and it's not a one-year project or a one-year initiative. We posed our mission for 10 years, and hopefully in 10 years we will manage to solve some of the issues and set the engine running. And here you can see also two axes that are crossing all three or four dimensions of our development. That's definitely policy making support and impact planning and measurement. These are two things that we're actively involved in. They're not our primary goal, but there's activities that we need to embed in our development in order to make sure that the level playing field is actually rightly developed, so everyone can, so it's a plus-sum game. It's not a zero-sum game at the end of the day. A little bit of the plan where we started in 2020, now we're 2022, and what you will see is that we did a lot of research and we did a lot of development of methods and methodologies in the last 2 years, also experimenting and piloting with them. But we've tackled policymakers, we tackled cities, and we tackled businesses in order to set things in the right place. This year is the final year of development and finalizing everything that we've created so far and putting this to the face of the market. And the next year would be putting everything together in a form of a platform of collaboration that we have started to work already this year. And we hope to, not we hope, but we plan and we will get finalized with one version of platform, collaboration platform that should be macro-regional in character. So what we try to avoid is we try to avoid narrative only about waste management, and we see that it is not enough that we focus only one country. That is why we are all focusing on macro-regional development, so connecting countries from the similar sets of barriers and opportunities. And finally, I want to take you through the rest of the year. So there will be several events that you can follow, and there will be combination of hybrid workshops, and these workshops would be in I would say combination with webinars, so they will be very connected to them. First, in webinars, we're going to discuss a topic, and then in workshop, we'll be happily sharing our experiences and methods that we have developed so far with you, so you can get acquainted with them. So next thing is 21st of September, where we're going to share a little bit of our methodology, how to tackle systemic approach to circularity. Then we're going to talk about, in the webinar, about cities as beacons for circular economy and explore the opportunities of collaboration between cities and industrial factors or actors. Then we're going to connect the hybrid workshop on this, and we're going to explore what are the collaborative roles and what is the value network that we need to create between cities and basically cities and citizens and the industrial sector there. Then we are happy to explore what are the measurements, what are the indicators, what are the dangers and the opportunities if we focus too much on one, or if we explore too many of indicators around circular economy. So we're going to discuss about carbon footprint, the LCA, and what are the implications maybe of other indicators to circular economy. And very connected to that, we're going to organize a last hybrid workshop where we would like to just sneak peek. That's not going to definitely be enough to teach everyone about these measurements, but to sneak peek in our approach, how to measure circularity, at least at the beginning, and then not spending too much time, money, or resources otherwise to deeply immerse in yourself in analysis, and then actually having something that is called analysis paralysis. At the end, I would like to invite everyone to the final event that is called Balkans Go Circular. And after 2 years, we have been developing, and we have delivered it in 2020. We have made a pause in 2021, but we realized that this is really getting some traction. So we are restarting the Balkans Go Circular conference, and we're expecting a lot of attention and a lot of participants, a lot of great speakers, not only nationally, not only regionally, but also internationally on this hybrid conference that will be held on 15th and 16th December 2022. If you want to get more information, you can do two things. You can definitely scan the code, or you can join us via newsletters, or join us or follow us on all social media pages. So I think it's LinkedIn, it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's also our website. Shortly, I'm gonna send all the links when we start with talking about all the topics that we need. So long story short, this was a introduction to the webinar, introduction to what we do, and now it's my ultimate pleasure really to welcome both speakers. So on one side, or on the left side, we have Ebun Akinsete. He is a senior researcher at the Sustainable Development Unit in ATHENA Research Center and the head of the Department of Stakeholder Analysis and Decision Support Systems in Greece. She's associate lecturer at the School of Applied Social Studies, Robert Gordon University, and senior partner in Nigerian-based consultancy GEN Sustainable Solution, pardon me. So with the Bachelor of Honors, the Architectural Technology, with the Master of Science in Project Management, and PhD in Urban Regeneration and Sustainable Communities, she has several years of both industrial and academic experience in Europe, Asia, and Africa. So in that sense, she can really give us a picture of how the international connection between these developments is happening. She's been collaborating with governmental agencies, NGOs, aid organizations, academic institutions, and private sector and local communities. And that makes really Ebun a perfect correspondent or speaker or like panelist that will discover the angles from all different kinds of institutions and collaboration and motives behind it. Her main areas of interest are sustainable development, and then of course urban regeneration, SDG policy and implementation, community development, climate change mitigation, transition management, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. So we're happy to have Ebun on stage. Ebun, just very shortly, thank you very much for joining this webinar, and hopefully that we're gonna have a fruitful discussion.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Ebun. Also in the right corner, as we would modernly announce, we have Ellie Shtereva. She is a certified PMP and project coordinator at our dear partner Cleantech Bulgaria. Also, Research Center ATHENA is the partner in the Circular Economy Balkan Beacons. As such, she is responsible for the development and conduct of national or international projects with a strategic focus on boosting innovation. And that's the actually last layer, if you remember from our picture. So boosting innovation capacity and nurturing entrepreneurship. That's really something that we feel we need to focus on our Balkan ecosystem in order to boost not only innovation for the sake of innovation, but to have this stage of commercialization of innovation, which means that we're boosting also and driving the value in our countries up. Prior joining Cleantech Bulgaria, she has been involved in the wide portfolio of European Institute and Innovation and Technologies, so basically EIT, activities. She has an MSc or Master of Science in International and European Governance from Leiden University, the Netherlands, and Bachelor of Studies in Political Science from Sofia University, Bulgaria. Likewise, Ellie, it's wonderful to see you today, and wish to have a fruitful discussion to get together.
Pleasure being here. Likewise.
Perfect. So I would really start with a question to the audience now. And the first question would be, just a second. The first question would be actually the type of our first discussion. So I would also allow you as panelists to be part of this poll. So the first question is actually, what do you think, what type of solutions are the best for the transition to a circular economy? And don't forget that we have another question as well, and please feel free to answer on these. What do you think the Balkans should focus on in transition to a circular economy in next 5 years? So it will be interesting to see what are the answers here. Unfortunately, I cannot participate, believe it or not. All right, so I'll give a few seconds for this to end. Not exploring too much. Actually wanted to ask Ebun or Ellie their initial thoughts, what or initial prognosis, what people will answer, but I don't want to influence the audience too much. So I think that, all right, the voting is slowing down. Right. And let's say in 5 seconds, I will end this. So if anyone didn't vote, the right time is right now. Okay. So the results are in front of you, hopefully, and you can see, we can see pretty even distribution on question 1. Okay, it's not even, but it's pretty even. 68%, the biggest concern, or the biggest area that we have to develop. 47% on the least, let's call it popular. And on number 2, there is a huge, considerably high amount of people that focused on recycling, less on redesigning products to fit circular markets, and then we have material input and process efficiency. Also, what we have here that I actually stopped, that I actually didn't see, is circular innovation. All right, maybe I did actually influence a little bit of voting here, but very interestingly, from my perspective, is that we don't have to focus on incineration at all, which I do think that is also happening in our area. So any first thoughts from Ebun or Ellie on these results? Maybe we start with question 1, and then we'll slowly transit to question 2. Ellie, maybe? Yeah, I saw your microphone is firstly being unmuted.
Yeah, okay. So I'm looking at the poll, and actually I'm not surprised by the responses. Going on in question 1, what type of solutions are the best for the transition to a circular economy? We know that system innovation or system approach is all about mixing all those main fields, so technological, regulatory, economic, market-based, and social. We know that all of these have to work together in order for us to drive circular innovation in the European Union, not only in the Balkan area. So I think that the audience did very well here. It's a very even disperse.
Thank you, Ellie. Ebun, anything to add or to comment?
I think I'll just really echo Ellie's comments there, in that it really is about all the different sectors and all these different areas working in collaboration and in partnership with one another. By its very definition, circularity cannot exist in isolation. So you do need this kind of, partnership across sectors to make it happen.
Thank you. I would also feel free to join this discussion and add to, it also depends about the dimension and the levers you pull. So technology is one lever that you can pull, but you cannot forget about the behavioral system or the behavior of people within your country or the micro environment. And you cannot forget about the values that are set up. So if we have a throwaway society, if we have the consumerism very much flourishing, and if we have pretty much the government that is incentivizing this type of I would say relationship towards waste and towards product, it's going to be harder to put up any kind of technology that is actually going against this stream of development. And I would point out to one work, and I will try while you're talking also to find the link and post it in a chat box, where we have discovered several layers of impact in which one solution or maybe very complex connected ecosystem of solutions should stream or should nudge the development of circular economy. What I mean by that is that the culture, the value, and the goal of let's call it the society, or the organization, needs to be in check and in line with the goals of circular economy. If not, then everything else would be, as I heard a couple of years back, and I really like the phrase, everything else will be technological repiping. And by repiping is just trying to bend the well, really trying to bend the pipe of material flows. We're not really doing much of the development towards different kind of society, the society that functions in a different way by other rules, driven by other values. So I don't know if you have anything to add on this one, or something that this sparked your interest in.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, really, because I mean, and I may be biased as well, coming from the social sciences and working with stakeholders, but I always say that, whatever it is we're talking about, whether it's circularity, whether it's about sustainability, it really comes down to the people. So we're starting from that social aspect with the people at the core. And like you said, there needs to be that common vision and those shared values there to begin with. And so you look at the social side, working in partnership with the regulatory side to create this sort of enabling environment that could then foster the activities of the technological and the economic and market-based aspects as well.
Thank you.
Ebun.
Yeah, if I may add here as well, I think what Ebun just said, I totally align with this, and this is something that we see actually. Our companies and our organizations are supporting startups in the, supporting a low carbon agenda and circular innovations. But we see that doesn't matter, regardless how many resources we put in startup solutions on circularity, if society is not ready for them, those solutions either die or have to wait until society or the market is ready for them. So we have to have this balance, and we have to have society ready.
True. And it's really the matter of time. And at the end of this webinar, we're going to really try to present very shortly one tool that we are setting up and that we're working with, and that has the internal dimension of how the organization, what are the opportunities and barriers within the organization, what is the external picture, and also we need to have something that you just have nicely mentioned, the time dimension. Like maybe everything is right, but the time is not right? So some things are coming on the horizon, and we cannot act now, maybe in 5 or 10 years. But that circular economy beacons is actually, the role is to speed up this time gap, right? Or sorry, to bridge this time gap, and to start to try to focus on things that might happen in 10 years, to at least try to do them in 5 years, or in 7 years, or in 2 years, in the best case scenario. Okay, so what about the second one? Recycling, a lot of recycling, zero incineration, and then we have circular innovation that is popping here very nicely.
Again, I would say I'm not surprised by the results. And so when you look at the answers that have a very high percentage, you see that these are immediately kind of the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
So not just the ones, again, that are most relevant, in particular within the Balkan regions, but also the ones where you can easily see the most impact and quickly, which I think is always a very good place to start from, because it translates to something that Ellie mentioned earlier about the market readiness. So when you're able to actually have pilots and demonstrators that work and they show that this idea is feasible and it does have an impact, then it also lays the ground for further expansion, let's say, into other sectors. So the fact that things like recycling and circular innovation are highlighted here, I think it just shows that these are the low-hanging fruit that we can really target in the short term and work towards some of the other sectors in the medium and long term.
Thank you very much, Ebun. Very nice. I would also add to this, or try to, fit your picture with the notion of by developing circular innovation, we actually, and by using your words directly, we can actually create pilots that will showcase also the other things that are not misrepresented, but with low percentages of voices. Well, at the end, there are voices. So with circular innovation and with piloting and experimentation in the area of circular economy, maybe we will get more visible what to do with refurbishing, what to do with repairing, remanufacturing, etc. And if our facilities and infrastructure are ready to do this as well. There is a huge opportunity in remanufacturing, but I guess the time is really, I would say, the cornerstone of our discussion today. And if you would see this gap, the goal of circular economy beacons is, to kind of try to even these things out and to speed up circular innovation in order to be more attractive, to be, dealing with the other most, I would say, higher value-based activities such as refurbishing, repair, and leaving the final products on the market or as close to market as it is possible. Ellie, anything from your side?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the refurbishing part, and with the only 11% have voted for that. Actually, I think that's absolutely logical, of course, and we have done different projects, and we had some exchange opportunities with countries such as Denmark and Sweden, and we have seen cases of small facilities where people do this kind of repair and refurbishing, but even there I have seen that it still hasn't grown in such a pace that the European Union is targeting at this point. Even in Bulgaria, a couple of years ago, we actually did some kind of activity with IKEA in Bulgaria on refurbishing and repairing, and people and consumers had to bring their wardrobes and their tables from IKEA, and one of our startups actually had to repair them and bring them back either to the end customer or to resell them again. And it was very good for a PR campaign, let's say it like that, but people were not still very aware of the added value behind it.
Okay, thank you. So not convinced about the value added in terms of it didn't change their behavior, or it didn't change their decision making, or they were just not convinced that that's a full story or the full picture or something else?
It was on I would say it was on a very small scale. I will just try to fix my camera because I see that nobody can see me. It's some kind of a Wi-Fi issue. This is the best of me. So
All right.
really sorry.
At least we see your face.
I will change it from time to time.
Okay.
It was a very nice experiment. IKEA was very up for initiating and doing it, but it was not something that, you know, people were ready to take on, you know, especially in the Balkans. Well, in Bulgaria, for example, still the mentality, I would say the predominant mentality is very linear. So people would like, you know, to have, you know, new, to buy new things, to buy new furniture in this case, and they're not convinced by refurbished products, right? So they think that they're going to break or they're not good enough. So there is definitely a long way to go to, you know, to switching this mentality in the end customer. But I think, and if the end customer wants this product, of course, companies will go this way, right?
So can I then maybe be brave enough and say on, if we refer back to question one, that actually one of the biggest barriers is social part, and we need to find solutions how to, or whether we should, you know, that's also the thing, whether we should do this or not. It's not just pushing for the end goal. It's about the journey and pivoting around the needs of each factor or each group of stakeholders. But I would be brave enough that maybe the systemic solutions should also maybe more be focused on the social dimension. And I can also conclude this from one of the conferences that we had really lively discussion throughout the conference with all the participants. That was really a one-time experience. Like, we have 200 people and all of them are talking to each other, trying to figure out what is happening around. And at the end, the final conclusion was actually something that reminded me on what you just said. And that was, okay, guys, we do have the measurement systems. We do have the technology in general. So what we have to do is streamline this or populate this. But we don't have, and we really need to have social scientists into the development of circular economy in order to figure out when, how, and why should we go from the social perspective into this journey of circular economy. So maybe I would leave this as a part conclusion of part one of our discussion today. And if anyone wants to join, please feel free to complement.
I would like to just add here that I think it's a very thin balance between social and regulatory as well. So I think that the regulatory field here is very important as well, because if there are not incentives created for the social driven process to engage, it's going to be even harder for people to join the circular mentality model.
And by incentives, I would not say only the taxes, the cut of financial.
No, both positive, but some could be. I don't want to sound negative. Of course, there should be both positive, and of course some type of other incentives. Don't want to call them negative because it gets a bad connotation. But definitely there are a lot of things that can be done on a regulatory practice.
Right. Okay, that's one of the topics we're also playing with, and when it comes to cities, is about creating enabling conditions for circular society. Well, because at the end of the day, it's about circular society from their perspective, how we manage to conclude with the discussion with them. So it's about creating enabling conditions for circular economy to develop, not about, yes, some of the tools may be, of course, the financial positive and negative, whatever we want to call it now, not being politically correct, but trying to figure out who needs what and enabling these people and these actors to grow in order to at the end of the day, stay in the city and develop part of their city. I just wanted to translate it to the most common language.
Absolutely. I totally agree with the enabling environment concept. Absolutely on point.
Thank you, Ellie. And at this moment, I would like also to invite the audience, if you would like to comment or if you would like to have your voice heard, or if you strongly agree or disagree with something that we've discovered or that we have a open discussion about, feel free to ask for the hand or for the voice or for the comment, or just simply put a question on the questions and answers section. With this, I'm gonna move forward a little bit with the next topic that what I would really like to discover with you is that now we have talked about different areas where we might touch and that we might influence in the Balkan system. So, but when we say systemic in nature, it's really nice word and it's really complicated, and we can, debate what is that and what is not, and everyone would understand this. And it's kind of a fluffy term for many. So in your experience and from your knowledge, what is the real difference between, and I also hear this confusion very often, is it systemic, is it systematic? So what is the system solution, the systems approach, and what is the main difference between it and the systematic solutions? Maybe we can start with Ebun here, if you agree.
Sure. Why not? Yes, thank you. I think it's a very interesting question. And like you said, it's one of those uses of terminology, or if you would, almost technical jargon to an extent, where it could become a bit confusing. But essentially, when we refer to something being systematic, then it's really more about the method. So it's about something having a clear step-by-step process. So you can even have a system solution that's executed in a systematic manner. Now, when we're talking about systems or systemic solutions and challenges, in this context, we're looking about how we examine the theme or whether it's the challenge or the solution from a holistic perspective. So you're looking at the entirety of the system, and crucially, the connections and the relationships within that system. So how one thing that happens in one area affects or has a cascading impact on other areas of the system. And in the context of circularity, then we're looking at the synergies and the trade-offs. So where we can find synergies and positive relationships within the system in a way that moves the system in the direction that we're hoping to. So interestingly, from the first poll, you see that incineration had a complete 0. And I think maybe I will give that as a credit to our audience, because I would assume everybody's coming a bit more from a sustainability background. And that while waste to energy, for example, so from incineration, is what would seem at first glance like a very low-hanging fruit. But then thinking about it from the systemic perspective, if you look at the trade-offs from actually creating energy from waste as a circular solution, the negative impacts across the system far outweigh the potential benefits. And so it suddenly becomes not such a good systemic solution, whereas it might be a good circular solution.
Thank you, Ebun. You have triggered me a couple of sub-questions, but I will leave them definitely for the later discussion. Very nice observation, and yeah, very systematic observation in its nature. Thank you. Ellie, would you?
I don't know, Ebun put it so wonderfully that I don't know what to add to it. Something that, just pops in my mind, but it's, I think she already said it. It's just, to me, system innovation, the approach that we are using, it's actually supporting the systematic implementation of the solutions that are targeted to the challenges that we are trying to resolve. So I think, systems is kind of connected to systematic, but it's, it's on top, it's what supports us.
Thanks. Thank you both very much. So in this way, as you mentioned, the real focus of also what we're doing and here, also talking with you, connecting with other people, is managing connections and relations. And that's really why it is important. Why it is really important. I have a couple of things on my mind that I have to prioritize what to say. So it's really important to see what is the influence of these relations and what is the motivation of people. At the end, it's people to get on journey together with you. And that's also what we're tackling in the cities, mostly in the cities domain when we talk about beacons. What is also an important fact is that, Ebun, you have mentioned this, we hope to get the right outcome. And what we saw in the traditional management or traditional business style is all about planning. So we want to get used to plan and then shoot for these goals, to reach these goals, whatever the, at the end, whatever the costs. Okay, whatever the cost in kind of a more broader word view. Of course, if it brings a complete disaster for the company, it's definitely going to pivot around. But the thing was, like, we planned for 5 years. We really go for it, for this plan of 5 years. Now the strategic plan has shortened span for 3, and now it's even 2 years planning. But my real question is, if we're talking about systemic solutions, what is the role of planning? Can we plan, and how can we plan for these changes to happen? Whoever would like to take the first word, please feel free.
I think that, planning through the perspective of system innovation or system approach should be very agile, and this is again this shift in mentality that we are, trying to reach in people, in businesses, on political level, and it's something that we have to have in mind. In the different sectors is very difficult, especially, for example, if we are thinking on a political level, it's it's very difficult to be agile with the timeframes that the policy measures have. But this is something that we have to have and take under consideration and plan in a way, or kind of implement within.
Apologies. So when you say agile, what do you mean by this? It's also kind of a new word, and it's usually used in, more and more in business, but before it was more in IT. So what do you mean by approaching it in an agile mode?
I would say, can you hear me? Because again, my camera is
perfectly fine. Okay,
perfect. So I would say that we have to be able to plan measures, or plan, regardless whether are measures or depending on the sector that we're speaking, to have those incremental steps within the big milestones that we try to approach, and have the ability to switch ways and switch solutions that we're implementing until we reach our final point. And we should not be afraid to work in such a manner.
Perfect. So basically 10-year plans, 10-year action plans are worthy or not so much worthy for the case of circular economy?
We cannot do without them, but the steps that or the measures that we are taking within them have to be more flexible. Let's call them flexible, not strictly agile, but let's call them flexible.
So more of a road mapping than action planning, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and be ready even to switch our milestones in between,
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. Ebun?
Yeah, I think I agree with that completely. And rather than where I would disagree, I'd say, as opposed to road mapping instead of action planning, I think it's really a combination of both. So, we keep the roadmap. We want to have our big, ambitious, long-term visions on the horizon. But within that, we can still have our action plans, in the short term, because those are always necessary. And Ellie mentioned agile. I mean, and like you rightly said, it's one of those, terminologies and jargons that are used in IT and business. And within that, while okay, you can be flexible, I think what's also very important is that you have iteration. And that's also something that is used within the systems innovation approach. I think Ellie mentioned that earlier as well, which is one of the core methodologies that we try to use in systems innovation. And that provides space and flexibility for circling back to reassess and see, okay, are we moving in the direction that we want? And then if not, how do we start moving in a different direction? Or how do we change what we're doing at the moment to move us in the direction that we actually are hoping to? And so there's that level of being comfortable as well within the flexibility, because like Ellie mentioned, you need to be able to say, okay, this isn't working and we will need to move this milestone and change the plan within that.
Thank you very much, Ebun. So two things that we are also trying to do is now you've opened another dimension of managing complexity, and I don't want to go there now because we're going to dedicate a whole session on this in one of the session on the 15 and 16. But one of the things that we have realized that roadmaps, yeah, they're fine. I don't want to repeat anything that you said now, but we realized that among some researchers that we had, one of them was needs assessment in Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And one of the combined barriers for circular economy, at least in the business sector, was the high cost of transition, not investment only, but high cost in transition. Because usually it is, as we pointed out, not maybe, but it is connected to something that we said at the beginning. Majority of votes went to technology, and companies are usually having obsolete technologies running in the factories, usually dominantly, not predominantly, but dominantly. So modernization and also the new type of technology that will bring circularity is something that is seen as a savior, and that's usually also the big amount of investment. What we try to do in circular economy beacons is that we scale down this. We provide opportunity for experimenting and piloting, and try to work with companies to change their view on how the process works. And exactly underlying what you, Ebun, had mentioned is that underlie the iteration and the pivotability, if I can call it like that. So trying to get the top management feeling okay and enabling this safe to fail environment within the microorganization, so they explore more, they learn more, I accented it wrongly. So they learn more than they succeed in their pilot. So the major focus is not go on this, make it functionable, scale it as soon as possible, but go in, disruptive way, smaller steps, learn more, and then come back and see what to scale, what not to scale. If there are any connections and any relations, as we've mentioned before, that we can change or that we can work with, so they decrease the total value of the transition. And usually it's working together with the supply chain. It's not about putting the technology into our factory. It's really about working with consumers, regulators, as you mentioned, but also with the supply chain. At least this is from our perspective, what we were working on for the last 3 years. Ellie, I think that you wanted to add something to this, or not?
I'm actually trying to fix my video at this point.
All right. So at this point, I would also like to share these links that I promised you at the beginning, and these are all the ways that you can follow us if you want to stay in touch and if you would like to share a hand of collaboration, because I think we've concluded so far, and I'm really glad that we kind of intuitively went there, that the collaboration is really about how to bring up circular economy. All right, so the next topic that I would like to discover together with you would be, so we have mentioned systematic. We have mentioned the planning and non-planning, pivoting and experimenting. But that really requires, as I said also, there is a safe to fail environment that needs to be established in this micro surrounding, whether it is an organization, a city, or a community, or something like that. So there are different types of thinking really that is necessary, or previously one would say mindsets that are necessary for setting up systemic circular economy on the ground. So let's try to just briefly direct, on a more intangible topic of what kind of thinking is necessary in order to set up this systemic transition. Anyone?
I think you already kind of alluded to it with your earlier statement, where you talked about having the safe to fail environment, and talking about, I like the term pivotability, and really it's about also people that have then that same mindset, people who have the mindset where, okay, you learn more from your failures than your successes, or people who have the mindset where they're comfortable changing plans and they're not wedded to that initial plan, bearing in mind that the end goal is really about the vision and the destination, but there are many different pathways to get there. So you need people who have that mindset and are okay with a certain degree of uncertainty, which a lot of people are not.
Thank you very much. Ellie?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that while you were talking, that even we can even go on a lower level, and I would say it would be wonderful with such types of skills are introduced even on a higher education level, right? So from this moment, this earlier moment, we already have those professionals thinking in this way. So to me, that would be very interesting to have such types of subjects who are supporting students from an early age to go there, to be more agile,
Thank you. On the other side, I would also add that it is very important to oh, well, not on the other side. Sorry, Ebun, you have mentioned this. So the top, the decision makers, wherever they are, they have to be open-minded. It's a very broad word, but acceptable to the minor risk of well, and having comfort with pivotability, right? Not pivoting around solutions and trying to find, even in every 3 to 6 months, trying to find new measures, new metrics, or new ways to accomplish this. We deal with this also with the process that we figure out for the cities, like what is the process that will enable cities to go around and actually enable this kind of getting around solutions and checking what kind of actors and factors where some things went south and where some predispositions and prepositions were wrong at the beginning, so they can try to navigate or change their course of either planning or impact direction or action planning or action delivery, etc., etc. So with this one, I would skip to to proceed with the next topic. Is that we're gonna tackle a little bit about a right to earth question is, what are the challenges that one sees in transition to circular economy? And here I would really like to have some help from the audience as well. We will see if this works. This is also an experiment mode, and thank you for enabling us this experimental environment. So now what I'm going to do is share the screen, and in front of you, you will see one question. And the question says, what are the drivers and motivational factors for your company to transit to circularity? And the way that you can join this polling or voting is typing in your browser www.menti.com. The information is right on the top. And you will be asked to enter a code. So you just write this code into the menti.com, and hopefully we'll very soon see answers popping up. Things that this can be a little bit messy, but that's also what the systems, right? Systems innovation and systems dynamics or systems planning is all about. At the beginning, you have a very messy picture, and the end, you try to make sense of it. So, right, can you start it? Can you go there? Let me see. Oh, I think everything is on. So, right, market demand, profit regulations. Anything else? Environmental protection, right? Let's see some words repeat really. This is a little bit more complicated task, definitely. It requires a bit more time. Profit, market demand, as well as market. We want to grow, also good. Let's shoot for more answers. Savings, on the other hand, environmental concerns or environmental protection, I will put them in the same category. And also market demand and market, I would say that's pretty much the same, but it can be also market supply. If we lack technologies, then it will be basically market push, or how can we supply enough of the things? One anecdote or one discussion that I'm constantly having is that we shouldn't maybe overflow the supply part when we don't have the demand part. And that's about, market push usually. And when we overflow with the supply part, then we can have a different kind of deviations, because there are some investment, done there, and it needs to have some kind of return on investment in one or the other way. It doesn't have to be profit. It can be also social investment, energy investment, or energy return. But if we blow the market with certain type of solutions, it can disturb, I would say the zero positive gain. I don't know, maybe Ebun or Ellie have something to add to this, or we could wait for some more words to pop up.
Now, I think you're spot on with that, because it goes back to what we were talking about, the systematic nature of these solutions. So the interdependence means that if you oversupply, like you said, flood the market, then you could actually end up having, an opposite effect than intended. In terms of the answers and the responses, I think, yeah, so profit, money talks at the end of the day. And fortunately and unfortunately, that's pretty much what it comes down to. But I think it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's a behavioral thing. So it's something that we need to understand in order to understand how to effect change and pull the right levers, as we were referring to earlier. And there's nothing wrong with, wanting to make more profit. What we should do is enable that profit to be made in a more sustainable manner.
Thank you. And I'm constantly, when we have also the workshops and all kind of, discussions or workshops or works, people, when we are trying to define indicators or we're trying to define actions, people are usually going on a very end side of environmental protection and really afraid to put anything that is economic wise and anything that is profit wise. So circular economy, we need to care about nature. We cannot mention profit. We cannot do this. And it's half of the workshop that I'm trying to encourage them. Circular economy is about profit. It's about different profit, but if it's, and also it's in our projects, if you don't see the value, that's basically the same signal how the market responds to what you're giving. And if there is no value, they will not give you money, therefore you will not get profit. So it's perfectly valid point. And it's yeah, I would say to Ebun's very nice conclusion, and it's kind of a how the profit connects within the system. That's maybe the thing that we should, discover how to change it. There are different approaches to this. We're not definitely going to go deeper in this area of research and science, but I will leave also space to Ellie if you may or you would like to comment on this one.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with both of you. What I'm thinking about is that even now, most of the companies, most of the large companies are seeing, circularity and environmental activities, let's call them like that, under their corporate social responsibility package, right? So they see that this is something that they have to do, but it's really not connected to their profit. And as you Milan said, this is absolutely not like that, and we need to show them that it's not this way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And in your opinion, what are also, besides these things, okay, we have mentioned some of the very obvious things that regulations, maybe I would say that the first stage would be enabling points, because at least here we have some regulation that is preventing material and produce to get back to the market. Right? So these are enabling. And then the next step is incentivizing to go in one or another way. And profit, definitely, market pull and market demand are something that we need to work on and constantly trigger these mechanisms to check whether in which sense, in which area the market is starting to be eager or to starting to have the voiced demand. There is kind of a latent demand and there is a voiced demand also of the market analysis. So it's something that is, yeah, we need this, but we still don't have the urgency and salience built up enough in order to voice this and put it in a strategic documents or tactical documents or whatever business documents that we're creating. But when it's a voice demand, that's where we need to be ardent about which areas is the demand coming from. And I would maybe direct this question to in this sense. It's an unplanned question. So do you have any kind of signals where you see the market demand for circular solutions in Greece and in Bulgaria? And then I'll connect also with Serbia if there is any signal that you can spot.
I wouldn't call it signal as such. I think, again, it's one of those things where you mentioned it earlier, and Ellie also alluded to it, where we shouldn't really be looking at circularity or sustainable solutions and that kind of thing as separate or different from a normal business, a normal market solution. It's really about being able to spot the opportunities. And you find that in a lot of cases, it is just about really being entrepreneurial. So say, for example, when the pandemic hit, so this is an example from Nigeria, actually, not necessarily in Greece, but when the pandemic hit, you saw a lot of people looking at material waste, so fashion waste, to repurpose it into face masks. And again, that is something that's not necessarily looking at hints or indicators of where the market might go, but it's really about being able to study the market and spot opportunities, just like any other business would.
Thank you. There is also one for me, it was an impactful, it's not a saying, it was more of a mantra that Ellen MacArthur Foundation is doing, is constantly putting up, is that circularity, we need to go to solutions by design. So we need to reach circularity by design, not by consequence. So that's also one of the things where we ending up with recycling is the end of pipe solution at the end of the day, or remediation of the fields or soil. So that's the end of the pipe solution, and that's what we need to do because we have to deal with consequences. It's one or the other way. But by doing it from the beginning and from design and trying to pinpoint what are the roadmaps, what is the external and internal factors that will drive us or that will push us, or and not us as individuals, but as organizations in any kind of a level or any kind of a type, that should be by design. And I would conclude this one with also that we cannot, also both of the speakers mentioned this, we cannot do it alone by sitting in the office and designing a wonderful plan and working with it. But this needs to happen through collaboration on different levels. And when I say on different levels, is between colleagues in one organization, between organizations in the supply chain, between different parts of supply chain in a value chain, working together with the society or consumers. And if we talk from the lenses on, you take from the lenses from the business perspective. So, and then working with, as we said many times, also with regulators. So these are all the levels, micro, meso, and macro levels that we need to embed in our solution, or at least to be aware of them in order to reach this systemic part. And I really like the conclusion of Ebun that also mentioned that we can hope for the good outcome, and we need to be ardent. And here is where Ellie also made a really important point. Be ardent of the possible changes that we need to do on the way. Ellie, I think I saw you raising the hand or unmuting.
Yeah, no, I unmuted myself. Just building on what you both said. Just in our work with a lot of different corporations, something that I've heard very often while we were thinking about different circular approaches to to be implemented within their companies. Most of them say we don't have the resources, we don't have the time, we don't have the resources to input in that. And then I'm thinking, yes, well, you don't have the resources and the time, but for example, the European Union and what we are also working with is giving a lot of opportunities, to build those resources and to build this time to invest this time towards building circularity within the company. And this is something that is very difficult to be explained to companies because still they see it as something that is not that relevant. It's actually going to cost them more than the other way around.
Which is a conundrum, really, at the end of the day, right? Sometimes
yes,
the so-called solution is not really. So in that way, it's a very simple conclusion. Maybe we should, discuss more on this. But maybe they need an agent that will bridge these challenges that are getting along the way and that are making things more expensive than they should be. And this brings me to the last question, really, for today's discussion, before I sneak peek into one of our methods, which is, let's see what are the positive examples of the systemic solutions that you've encountered, and maybe very connected to this is, while making them happen, what were the challenges that you saw, and maybe how did you manage to overcome? But the focus is definitely on what are the examples of systemic solutions that you're familiar with, or maybe if you work on some.
I can start very briefly here. So a couple of years ago, we worked with the system innovation approach, and it was exactly connected to circularity, and we were working with the government on it. And this was it was very exciting because this was the first time actually that all the ministries in Bulgaria were working together under this, and we were managing a working group with all the ministries that are responsible in a way to put within the different domains circularity. So it was about the smart specialization strategy. All countries have it, and we wanted to update it for the new period and to include circular economy horizontally for the different domains. And it was it was very exciting, but also it was very difficult because, the government has never worked in such a way. So they saw it as, in the beginning, they saw it as a big chaotic mess. Like, how are we going to do it? There are so many lines that we have to put in this, so many regulations, so many policies. But at the end, I believe it was a very fruitful process. It lasted for 1 year. We were able to see what the perspective of the government was, but also we were able to create focus groups with different industry representatives. So we were able also to see what their perspective was in connection to what the policymakers were thinking, right? So we saw where the gaps were and tried to pinpoint them in order for the policymakers to include what actually the industry wants in the smart specialization strategy. So afterwards, the instruments that are used from the European Union to be working for the industry and not only having them, but then you have a lot of resources just floating there, but nobody's using them. So we wanted to fix this issue, and now actually circular economy is built within the new smart specialization strategy for Bulgaria for the new period, and we will see what the results will be. But it was definitely very exciting, messy, but very exciting.
Thank you. As every systemic journey, I guess, is.
Yes.
The question that I will have is whether you've recognized any kind of rebound effects or backfires or something that didn't go as planned. When you said messy, definitely there was something, but if you saw anything that you didn't, intended to produce, maybe some social answer or, some strong actors suddenly popping up and blocking some of the process or stuff like that.
I would say the main blockage, and again, I don't want to have any negative connotations because that was a very positive experience for me. That I was expecting worse, to be honest, and it was very well managed. The main blockage was due to the fact that the different institutions weren't, they haven't worked like that, never. They were working in silos, and they were seeing it, as something very difficult to be implemented, to have their different policies working together, exchanging information between those different institutions in order to have common packages, or for example, common European programs that are going to be influencing all of them together. They just have this mentality of working in silos. For example, the Ministry of Economy is working only on its programs, and it's absolutely not related to what the Ministry of Environment and Waters is doing, although they have policies that are connected, but they are not used to implementing programs together, right? So that was the main challenge, but I think we managed it very well, and it opened the door.
The outcome was, you mentioned some sort of a document or a strategy or agreement, or.
So it was, first of all, we did this was the first cross-ministerial working group ever. So for me, that was a huge success. And afterwards, after all our meetings, after the focus groups that we did with the industry representatives, we had a final document, a final suggestion, like a strategical analysis document that was suggesting in which different domains the circular approach can be implemented in a way that the European programs can be then organized, so the industrial actors can profit from them.
Okay. Nice.
Benefit from them, not benefit from them.
There is some similar development in Slovenia, also supported by Climate Kick, that also wanted to, the aim is to connect the different horizontal ministries to work together on the topic of circular economy. So we will, I think the plan is to have them also on the 15th of December in this, in the final event. Ebun, enlighten us, please, with your example.
So I have quite a few, but I think since Ellie has given us an example from the regulatory side, so more from the top-down perspective, I'll give an example from the other end of the spectrum, which is more of a bottom-up. So in some sense, it could even be considered a social innovation.
Mhm.
So here is the example of Blue Cycle, which is an organization here in Greece. And essentially, the main drive for this was more socio-environmental. So it was really about trying to do something about plastic waste in Greece. And again, it's then looking at plastic waste as a systemic challenge, as a systemic problem, because it doesn't just impact the environment, but it also has knock-on effects on health when you look at degradation and microplastics in the food chain, and then also has direct economic effects on tourism, because Greece is a country that relies heavily on tourism, which ironically also is a major contributor towards plastic waste. So it's also a cyclical problem in itself. So what Blue Cycle really does then is they try and work with the fishing community, looking at really harvesting plastic waste from the oceans, and then upcycling that waste into commercial products. And so they have on board a team of the product designers. And so they convert the plastic waste into 3D printing material and 3D print cartridges. And they're then able to develop high-end marketable plastic furniture for gardens, indoors, outdoors, and also other items, not just things like chairs and even play areas, but also smaller items like vases, etc. And so it's one of those systemic circular solutions that has addressed the systemic problem, but then it also then through the intervention has managed to also create jobs and also create awareness as well and education around the issue of plastics, but also what we can do about that.
So did it had any kind of regulatory effects on something that changed in regulations, incentives, or relation to plastics from the government?
So incidentally, the regulatory side was the challenge in this case. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Greek bureaucracy, but it's quite notorious. So just trying to navigate the bureaucratic aspect of that at every stage, whether it has to do with, what sort of contracts can you actually have with the fishers that you're working with who are harvesting this, because it was also important to compensate them for their time as part of your supply chain. And then what sort of paperwork is also necessary for, setting up the manufacturing aspects for the employment. And so generally navigating bureaucracy in Greece, at least, tends to be one of the major challenges, whatever you're looking at. So but I think, sorry?
You managed to break that ice.
Somehow, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I would, being that I'm mindful of time, it's 12:22, and I would love to give some closing words from each of the speakers, and if there are some questions from the audience also remained open, let them know, or definitely contact us via all these links that we posted. So any closing words from Ebun or Ellie regarding how to, orient ourselves towards systemic, not singular or siloed, as Ellie mentioned, siloed solutions?
I think actually it'll go back to a very interesting point that Ellie made earlier, which was about education and awareness, and how do we have more people in the workforce who have the skills that are necessary to translate towards systemic solutions and systems thinking. And she talked about, maybe it's something that we could actually teach in schools, because we teach critical thinking, we teach analytical thinking. Why don't we teach, flexible thinking as well? So I think that might be something that may be quite interesting and, as a consideration.
Thank you very much, Ebun. It was a pleasure having you in this webinar, and hopefully we continue working together on these systemic solutions.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Ellie, would you like to complement and put the punto on this webinar?
Yeah, well, the pleasure was likewise. It was, very informative and elaborative to listen to all of you on the topic of system innovation. I don't want to conclude it in a way, but I would say that there is a long way to go towards changing, from linear to circular and implementing system solutions. But I would definitely say that this is the way forward, and I love to work within this domain.
I would really like to open a new discussion, definitely not now, about the risks of not being systemic in our transition to circular economy. And maybe this is for my team as well. Information, maybe we include this as a topic in the final discussion and the final event. Until then, I just want to share 2 slides more in order to familiarize the audience with something that we've done last couple of years. We have combined a couple of methodologies. We have tried them. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. And this is basically the first step of our method of how to help companies going into transformation in circular economy. And this is called sense makings. For the ones that are familiar with complexity theory, then you know what I'm talking about. And basically the goal is to familiarize that the companies face the reality that they're facing in front of circular economy as a systemic change, not as a technological setup. So this is one canvas that is, definitely taking a lot of time to map and then a lot of time to analyze. But basically what it says is 3 stories. Oh, sorry, 2 stories. And if I manage to, okay. So the first story is about the internal factors of the company and their strengths and weaknesses in 4 domains that are drawn here. And this tells a story how much they can offer in transformation to a circular economy and how much they're willing, how much they're motivated, and maybe when will they be motivated. The second part of the first story is external factors. So what is everything that is happening around them that pulls them or pushes them in order to, make any kind of transformation, not only circular, but in this domain, we focused on the areas here that are defined, environmental pressure, business, etc. And the questions and basically the process of it is concerning or aims to reach circularity. The second story is about the temporal dimension, and we talk about 2 states here: the current state of what is happening right now inside and outside of the company, and the future state. So what is to be expected in 4 domains in 5, 10, or 15 years. That gives us a lot of information how to set up this roadmap or milestones that we talked about, and it gives us flexibility to work inside of this mapped system in order to nudge our own micro, part of the system, or in a bigger scale, to nudge this one to work in domain of circularity, and also to define what are the dependencies between actors within the system. And at the end of the day, this is only the first step of the journey to transform to circular economy. And that is, pointed here, sensing. And our goal in circular economy beacons is to create the collaborative network of experts that will enable this kind of transition, this spiral effect of one company connected to another company, connecting to a supply chain, a value chain, and then cross-borderly connecting to each other in order to create the circular market. I would leave you with these words and invite you to the hybrid workshop where we would explore more about the details about this canvas and briefly guide you through the implementation framework that we have built in the last couple of years that we believe that are, and we saw also working for the small and medium, particularly medium enterprises in the Balkan region that are kind of opening exactly what also Ellie had mentioned from the ministerial point of view. Now we're talking from the bottom up thing that is opening the opportunities for reaching funds, and not only funds, but reaching capacity and resources to transform to circular, beneficial circular solutions. I would end here. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Thank you, Ebun, and thank you, Ellie, for having this wonderful discussion, hopefully fruitful. And our goal is really to continue collaborating. So reach us via contact@circularbeacons.net, or feel free to well, to visit our pages on all the social media and internet site. Hopefully see you on the workshop, but also on the next series of webinars. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.